Okay, it is exactly 8:30 on Monday, November the 18th, 2019, and believe it or not, we are halfway through after this week with this course. I told you it goes really, really fast. So at the end of this week, we will be starting the second part next week. Now, I'm telling you this now, that any assignments that are missing from weeks 1, 2, and 3 must be submitted, if they're not already, by the end of week number 4. At the end of week number 4. If you have not submitted your assignment from week 1 to 3 after weeks number 4, unless I've had previous arrangements made with you, and then that's not to assure that when you submit those assignments that you won't lose points either. So I've already gone on record as saying that when you have an issue as far as your assignments, and I have heard from many of you guys who've had problems in many of my classes. I don't recall if I had any in this class. I think I did. But at any rate, I work with you, but I need to know in advance. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Here is my screen. And the information here, I've already given you that. So let's scroll down here, reminding you that your rubrics are very important and that they're in each weekly assignment. You have your rubric before you complete the assignment. Matter of fact, you have your rubric when you start the assignment. And this reminds you of the schedule for our live lectures, which began a week ago, Monday, the 11th. Of course, so we had the open house, but I'm talking about on our Monday schedule. So we have one coming up here, the next one, which is week 4, is going to be the 25th. And that's going to be just before Thanksgiving. And then we'll have 2 more after that. And each place, you see the lectures are right here, so you can refresh your memory. All right. So now I want to bring your attention to this announcement that I posted this morning, early this morning, about 10:15, letting you know that for your week, and I said week 7 announcement, but what I mean is week 3 announcement in this class, because that's for the classes that I had. Let me correct that. Let me correct that right now. So edit, because you don't have a week 7. Okay, week. Oh, I'm sorry, that was week 2 assignments. Yeah, because week 3 assignments we're starting now. For week 2 assignments, yeah, so let's submit that. You should have been able to figure out I was talking about the assignments that we do, because I said there was a problem with Blackboard yesterday evening, the 17th. All written assignments are due today. So even though the caption was wrong, the message was right. So by tonight, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, if you submit your assignments for week 7, aside from the discussion post, I'm talking about your written assignments, then in that case, I didn't deduct points for lateness. Even given your key phrase from week 2, you could still give it up until 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight without losing points on it. So let's go down to where we are today. We are at week 3. Oh, let me get to Let me go back to course home because I'm still on. Okay, let's go back to course announcements. There we go. So week 2 written assignments. I had to correct that for my other class. So here we are with week 3, the announcement for this week. So this week we're going to deal with the policy and social trends, the mental health and criminal behavior. We're going to provide details concerning that. And to prepare for this assignment, you would read chapters 3 and 4 of your textbook. And that's where you would find the information that you need. I sent you the PowerPoints on yesterday for this. And then we're going to go over the activities, policy and social trend, drug use, abuse, addiction, and theories of addiction and drug identification activity. We're going to cover those before we adjourn. And this reminds you of the schedule for the lecture. It reminds you, too, your discussion assignment, social policies and trends. Your initial post is due tonight by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and your reply post due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally, you have 2 things. You have your course project, heroin and crime, and your quiz. I do recommend that you complete your quiz on Sunday after you've had a chance to go through the materials. Some of you have already done them, and scores haven't been so great. And you want to not try to do that first. Some people get faked out. You know that they're time. And so, anyway, you know about my motto because I've discussed that with you during week 1. So now let's go look at the course calendar. Let's pull up course tools here. And so your course calendar for this class, here it is right here. This is where we are today. Of course, you click on that and you see your reading assignment, okay, that I just shared with you. And then your live lecture, it tells you the link and everything there that you can find as well. Your initial post, which is due tomorrow night. If I stated earlier that your discussion posts are due tonight, they really do. I'm thinking about my class that I teach on Tuesday nights, which is Introduction to Criminal Law. Some of you are in that class as well as this class. But at any rate, your initial post is due tomorrow night, the 19th. Your reply post is due Saturday, the 23rd. And then your written assignments along with your key word or phrase. And then we'll be back with another lecture. All right? Then you see what I always show you, so you have no excuses. At the end, our courses end. We have 2 December lectures. December 2nd, which is right after Thanksgiving, and then December the 9th. That's the last lecture because the class is in 4 days later on the 13th. That's your last date that you do your assignments that are to be turned in on December 13th. So you have been well informed about what that is. All right, so now let's go and take a look at our module. I remind you again, this Drugs and Crime Course Guide. If you click on it again, it will tell you some information about this week's lecture, this week's session. There's Module 3. Every week there's a link for you to go into to dealing with what it is that you need to use in terms of getting things done. Okay, so that's week 1 there I just clicked on. So week 3, and then here's some guides to help you. Weekly discussion, dealing with how to do well with quiz and test anxiety, dealing with the course project, some sources for data and information for research, government websites like DEA, National Institute on Drug Abuse, Substance Abuse, and Mental Health as well. So you can find help as well dealing with the librarian, and then of course your APA writing and issues, which are all over the place. All right. So that's in every module, and it gives you an advantage to help you. The assignments for this week, again, the course project, you take this fact pattern, and then you're going to conduct research regarding theories explain the connection between substance abuse and criminal behavior. You're going to hear me say about 1,000,000 times that there is a correlation between drug abuse and criminal behavior. And that coincides with the fact that people commit crimes in order to support their drug habits. Not they want to be criminals, but they have to have a way to get what they call their fixes or whatever is needed there. And so for this part of the course project, you're going to write a paper, minimum 3 pages, not counting the cover page, not counting the reference page, dealing with these 4 bullet points. Your paper is going to have at least 3 credible, reliable resources. I've shown you where you could find reliable and credible resources. Be sure to rely on these other than your textbook. So I wouldn't even use my textbook in my paper. But 3 credible, reliable, I'll determine what they are. Never use Wikipedia, and be sure to include citations in the body, properly formatted based on the APA, a cover page, and a references page. That's APA requirements, along with some others. But this is what you have to do. Now let's go to rubric. You click on this. You see your due date. This is your rubric. So where's the rubric? It says view rubric. So you click on that, and it tells you what you need to do. All the things that I just said are included in here. Okay? And then 3 credible resources, 3 pages, and then your APA standard requirements there. So you can take a look at that and make sure that in your paper that you submit, by the way, double spaced. I think it's Roman 12 that you use, font size. And like I said again, double, not single space. Okay? Again, citations in the body and references at the end. So that's the rubric for that. Okay, so then let's go back and let's see what else is next. Your discussion posts, you know what that is, dealing with the war on drugs. I've kind of made a general post about my position on the war on drugs from the beginning. Don't parrot what I said. Determine yourselves based upon what you discover from your research. And then, of course, in your reply post. It says be sure to include proper citations, which is for information you relied upon. Very definitely. I don't require them, but they do. And then for more resources to help you, you go where I just showed you. Tab 3, module tab 3. But I just showed you in the guide. Okay, the drugs and crime course guide. Then you have your quiz. Consists of multiple choice questions, which are timed for ½ an hour. You'll have 1 opportunity to complete this. Okay? You'll be given a 5-minute warning, a 1-minute warning, and a 30-minute warning. Again, when you take this, you're abiding by the academic misconduct policy set forth in the syllabus, which we went over during open house. And you're acknowledging that you will abide by that And also, you're also abiding by what was said in the academic integrity video that each of you saw as well in my class during the open house. And so if you don't do that, we'll be able to tell, but the point of the matter is that you need to be sure that you're doing this properly. Then your live lecture, your live key phrase, of course, you see that's due on Sunday the 24th by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. As if you just clicked on the quiz, you'd see the same thing. I'm not going to actually click on the quiz because it'll open it up to questions and you will have them on video, and we're not having that. 30 minutes, okay, and it tells you your grade is submitted within that period of time. And those are your assignments for the week. So now let's go back and let's now get into what we're going to talk about here. So let's open this up. So we're going to deal with the policies and trends of drug use, abuse, and addiction, theories of addiction, and drug identification activity. Those are the two things that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to adjourn because I've already covered this, I covered this, I covered this, and I covered this. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's going on here. What is, we are number one in an epidemic situation. And we have reached a stage where, you know, the legislators and law enforcement organizations like the FBI, DEA, Drug Enforcement Authority, Administration rather, and FBI, CIA, local police, state police are all dealing with enforcing the laws. On the federal government level, there are laws that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about different choices and methods of people using drugs, and I'll talk about the one that I favor most. So there have been so many laws passed to deal with these drug use and drug abuse and drug-related behavior. And these things have reached the stage where they're supposed to minimize or reduce criminal behavior of certain drugs. However, we are not winning in terms of the war, the quote, war on drugs, the war on drugs. As you know, that since the 80s, there have been laws to try to crack down on, as they say, drug activity. I represented many people for years as a criminal lawyer in not federal court so much, but in state court, where they were not the dealers, though I did do some of them, but most of the ones I represented were individuals who were users and would be arrested for substance abuse and sometimes for distribution of small quantities. But the point of the matter is that so the laws have passed with sentencing to make it very serious for drug-related crimes. And so what has happened is that there were individuals who were arrested for possession of crack cocaine. You should be aware of the fact that crack cocaine was a cheap high that people would pay $5 for, or $10, but it was real cheap. And this is, we talked about this before, I think last week, about how, you know, drugs are cooked, how crack cocaine is made. And I used to be the village attorney in what we call the crack cocaine capital of the south suburbs in Illinois, called Ford Heights. And there were many crack houses there. But anyway, they have passed legislation that increased the amount of time that a person gets. As a result, the prison populations swell up because of the fact that individuals are sentenced there. And many of these individuals that are sentenced are not your so-called drug cartels or organizations that we talked about before and we'll talk about again. It's individuals who were users and they were serving long periods of time. So recently what has happened is that we have recognized as, you know what, this war on drugs thing is not working really well because we're incarcerating people and not reducing recidivism. Because here's the deal, you get tough on drug users, but you don't get them the treatment that they need to free them from that, I call it the monkey on their back, which is what the drug represents. In other words, their body is craving this stuff, and so they'll commit crimes, stealing even from their mother to get whatever they need to support their habits. And so what happened is that people would go in jail, and then they would get out of jail, get back in the streets. They didn't get treated very well for the drugs, and they would just be what we call repeat offenders, and it just went around and around and around. And so there have been many individuals who have even lost their lives eventually from overdosing. So today we're going to talk about the part of it is the connection between using drugs and criminal behavior. Say, it says here that the thought is that people who use or abuse drugs are addicted to drugs, but also engage in drug-related activities. It says, in addition, there are other reasons why a person uses or abuses drugs and engage in criminal activity. So, in other words, the point of the matter is individuals, they have these various models that they use to try to define why people use drugs. And I disagree with at least two of the methods, and we're going to talk about them right about now. So drug addiction has been reduced to dealing with what we call three models or reasons why people use drugs. And one is called the choice method. The other is the disease model, and then the other one is self-medication. Now, the choice model basically says in its name, it's believed that a person chooses to use drugs and therefore can choose to stop using it. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You hear me? That is not true. What happens is that those individuals start to use these drugs, and then it's a medical issue, and they need to be delivered from using those drugs or detoxed so that they will get not only the drugs out of their system, but they go through withdrawals and all kinds of bad situations to get off of the drugs once they're on it. And so the choice model is ludicrous because people don't choose to use substance abuse. And oftentimes people will try it once and then they're gone. I know how the crack cocaine thing worked. People would smoke crack and then they would get high, and then after that they went higher than they ever in their lives. And then they spent time after that trying to get back to that level, which was impossible for it to happen. And so they end up using more drugs, and as a result, they caused themselves OD'd, overdosed, and or serious illness. And in order to support those habits, they would commit robberies, thefts, burglaries to get the monies to be able to satisfy the drug habit. So the choice model is one that I totally throw aside because it's not really the way things work. The next one is called the self-medication model. And it says that people use drugs, legal and illegal, to compensate for other problems. Now, that is true to a point. People do use drugs as an escape mechanism for things that are happening in their lives. But what happens is that the self-medication model says that these individuals started out by taking innocent drugs, and you're going to learn that. You're going to learn that in weeks to come, that like painkillers or antidepressants or things of that nature. The bottom line is they started taking things to try to alleviate symptoms of anxiety, depression, or either they give you Ritalin or some other kind of drugs when you have mental illness issues. So what has happened is that it says here some people develop mental health problems related to their compulsive drug use. And some people take drugs in an attempt to alleviate symptoms of mental health disorders, like I said, the Ritalin and some other drugs. And so we started to talk about legal drugs as well as illegal drugs. So what the self-medication model is basically saying is that individuals are trying to get help or either escape from something. It's like people do with alcohol. Same type of thing. Is like you hear people say they crawl into the bottle, and what that really means, they don't physically crawl into the bottle, but what it means is that the bottle becomes the device that they use to temporarily relieve themselves of the concerns or worries. That's the same thing people do with the self-medication. Basically, they get high, and then when they come down from their high, not only do they have the problem that they had before, but they have another problem, which means now they're hooked on something. I personally don't like to take a lot of painkillers because I've seen athletes that I've worked with, entertainers, I've seen personal friends who start to take these things, and they reach a point where their body begins to call for and crave for them, and people will. Do you know they'll sell these ibuprofen pills on the street for like $25 to $50 a pill to make money? I'm telling you, it's a real issue. So now let's get to the disease issue. Now, I have already gone on record before and said it many times, and continue to say it, going back even to the days when I was in law enforcement, 89 to 93, that the disease model fits because it's based on the idea that addiction is the result of a chemical or biological issue, and that's exactly what takes place. So it is thus the theory that if you punish people for drug-related crimes without addressing the reasons why they use the drugs, it will not likely change the pattern of criminal behavior. That's the point that I make, because the fact that we approach it from a health issue as opposed to a lock them up, throw away the key, let them out, and then they commit more crime, they come back, and they maybe eventually kill someone or themselves. So now we're reaching the stage where through what we call deflection, which you'll hear me talk about in weeks to come, where law enforcement is starting to recognize that the old issue of war on drugs and locking up individuals who are using these drugs is not very beneficial to decreasing recidivism. In other words, let's get these people some help and get them cured. After all, when you're sick with the flu or something like that, you go to the doctor. You want something to help you get the issue taken care of. If you have some kind of virus, you might need an antibiotic that you'll have to take to kill that germ in the body and give you back your body's health or ability to be stronger. And so what has happened is that now we begin to recognize and move towards the public health issues. You should be aware that law enforcement, EMTs, firefighters, almost all of them now have some drugs, Narcan, we'll talk about them again in weeks to come, that will rescue individuals who have overdosed and maybe bring them back to life. The point of the matter is and then recognizing the fact that the old lock up the key, lock them up and throw away the key is not working. And so it says, as a result, it says many public health advocates and medical professionals are now advocating that the treatment should be part of a sentence for a drug-related conviction. When I represented people in what we call drug court, that was part of the deal, that individuals had to subject themselves to going through these various programs to help them to try to alleviate the drug problems. So, and we're going to cover that more in detail, dealing with how they're treated and dealing with the issue ultimately of rehabilitating individuals later on, actually when we get to the end of this course. And so I recommend that you read this article. You'll find a lot concerning substance abuse and mental illness and challenges. There's a few articles that I have that I'm going to send you guys that you can take a look at as well. I'm going to send those to you after this class today. So now we get to the last part, where you deal with the various theories of addiction and drug identification activities, and then you take the time to complete these. The theory that drug abusers can stop or control their use but choose not to, and you're going to put your answer there. Then you go to the next one. All right, and all of these you'll find in your information that we just covered, and or you'll find it in your PowerPoint and or your textbooks. So there are many theories. So if you went to the next one, then it tells you put the feedback. So I'm not going to do that. So if I just put any kind of feedback in there, then it will allow me to go to the next one. So I'm going to let you do that and tinker around with that. All right. So now let's get to what we want to deal with today for the key phrase. I told you that these lectures would be shorter in some weeks, and some weeks it will be longer. Today is going to be one of the shorter ones. And so I want to give you the phrase that you use for this particular session tonight. It's very simple. Substance abuse. Substance abuse. Substance abuse. You give me that, and you will get your points. Do you have any questions? If so, type them in the chat box, which I will see. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay. There appearing to be no questions. I'm going to say good night to you guys. I will see you next week. Like I said again, get those assignments in. And like I said, we're at the halfway point going into the second half. So I'm going to terminate this meeting, and you guys have a good week. See you next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard. Okay. All right. Make sure that whenever you're welcome. Whenever you type in your chat, take it off of privately and put it in everyone, so everyone can see it. So, okay. Good night. See you next week.